Welcome to Hey, it's Carly Rae's Book Club. This is Book Hour where authors will talk their latest novels, reveal their writing process, and play some fun book games. I'm your host, Carly Rae. Today we have author Jamie Pacton. We're going to be talking about her newest novel, The Life in Medieval Times of Kit Sweetly, what inspired her to set this novel in a medieval-themed restaurant, find out if she had to do a lot of research before crafting this novel, and if she is releasing more books. Plus, we're going to find out if Jamie would rather be an average person in present day or a king of a large country 2,500 years ago. We'll dive in right after this. Hello, Jamie. Tell us where you're joining us from.
Hi, Carly Rae. I am in a small town in Wisconsin, about half an hour outside of Madison. So right in between Madison and Milwaukee.
And how's the weather there today?
Actually, it's lovely for now. It's nice and brisk and not too cold.
Now, your latest novel, The Life and the Medieval Times of Kit Sweetly, pictured here, is out now. It centers around Kit Sweetly, who works at a medieval-themed restaurant. Tell viewers more about what this novel is about.
Sure. Okay, so Kit is a serving wench. That's her job. So she's a 17-year-old waitress, and her brother is a knight at this restaurant. So have you been to one of those medieval themed dinner parties or dinner theaters? Yeah. So I love those. And so Kit has aspirations to stop being a wench. And one night she takes her brother's place and rides out as the Red Knight. And she does the show, which is kind of pre-scripted. And at the very end, her uncle, who's the king and the boss at the show, says, "Oh, excellent, the best man won," and whips off her helmet and declares, "I am no man," kind of like Eowyn on Lord of the Rings. And so somebody films this, and it starts this sort of viral campaign in her part of, she's outside of Chicago, and it starts this viral campaign to change policies at the castle. So the policy there and the policy at real medieval times, as far as I know, is that only cis men can ride out as knights. And so Kit is joined by a band of friends and coworkers who are across the gender spectrum, and they all seek change using her viral fandom at the castle. And so in addition to that too, it's also a book it's got a lot of history woven into it. Kit's kind of a history nerd, as am I. It's got a sweet sort of slow burn friends to lovers romance. And then it's also got a lot to say about Kit kind of grappling with her poverty and also her privilege as she tries to sort of enact this larger this change at this small place, but kind of it becomes this larger scale thing.
Did you have to do a lot of research of the medieval times before crafting this novel?
I didn't actually, and the only reason for that is because I'm such a history nerd that some of the fun facts and things that Kit knows are things that I studied either as an undergrad or a graduate student. So I kind of just knew some of these things, and then I did a lot of research. A couple years ago, I was writing a middle grade book about Marco Polo as a kid. And so I ended up doing all this research on the Middle Ages then. And a lot of that plus grad school informed what I put into Kit. I did do some research just to make sure I remembered things correctly, or as I was looking up specific female knights at certain time periods. But it wasn't as deep a dive research as it might seem, just because I knew a lot of this. So I like to say that I just have sort of accumulated this knowledge over the years. And, yeah.
Well, was there something about the medieval times you were most surprised to learn?
Ooh. Let's see. I mean, there's all sorts of surprising, weird things about the Middle Ages. And I think one thing this book tries to do is kind of overturn what we know of the Middle Ages as these white spaces where it was all men, on horseback and women wanting flowers. And Kit definitely does a lot of talking and thinking about the Middle Ages as they really were. And so didn't necessarily surprise me, but one thing I've heard that people are surprised by is just that, there was great diversity in the Middle Ages. Like people traveled in the Middle Ages, and the Islamic world and other parts of the world were dynamic parts of Europe at that time, and there was communication back and forth. And so I think people are always a little surprised about that, and that's one thing that I try to bring out in the book. But some of my own surprises just came through when I was researching just like weird esoteric things, like this is like kind of, I don't know, it's kind of gross, but there's a certain town in Germany, they used to punish people for things like gluttony by putting masks on them that were like pig faced, and like there's just all of these weird little tidbits of history. Some of them made it into the book, some of them didn't. But there's just things that I was constantly surprised by, both how different and forward the Middle Ages might have been, and also how grotesque and troubling parts of them were too.
Yeah. Well, so many readers on Goodreads and on their blogs have commented how much they love this feminist rom. Did you always want the character of Kit to stand out?
I did, definitely. But I did one thing that kind of Kit learns, and then I think I sort of learned as an author too, is like initially this book was all about Kit. It was about this girl taking her brother's place, and it became about so much more than Kit. And that's why it was important for her not to just be like, yay, girl power, this is, me smashing the patriarchy. I think feminism has to be inclusive, and as does Kit. And so she invited people like her friends who are trans or non-binary or others to join her and try and change things. And I think that's, yes, I wanted Kit to stand out, but only insofar as she's the main character and this is her story. I didn't want it to just be about, a lone girl doing it all herself, because it really is sort of a communal space and it becomes a communal quest.
Yeah. Well, what was your favorite part of the process in writing the life in medieval times of Kit Sweetly?
I loved so much this. So I got this idea when I went to Medieval Times with my son back in 2017. So we went to the one in the suburbs of Chicago, and my husband and I had been meaning to go for years, and I finally took my son. And so one of my favorite parts was just going. And I wasn't actually going there thinking I was going to write a book. I went there just to have fun with him. And then this story sort of came to me as I talked to our server and we watched, and I wondered, like, why are there no male knights? And so one fun thing was just hearing Kit's voice in my head, because what I came home from that night, in the fall of 2017, I came home and I wrote down the first page of Kit, basically. And that page is pretty much the same as what's in the book right now. So that was very fun. But I also had a tremendously good time just weaving in things like Lord of the Rings jokes or medieval history jokes or Game of Thrones jokes. And there's this whole section where she and her brother are just like throwing down Gandalf jokes, and stuff like that is silly and fun. So I enjoyed that quite a lot. And I also really enjoy, I love writing like romance scenes and slow romance scenes. So that kiss when they finally get to it, which is not too much of a spoiler, I don't think, that was incredibly gratifying to finally bring them together.
Yeah. Well, you heard Jamie talk all things the life in medieval times of Kit Sweetly. Stay tuned, because when we return, we're going to dive deeper into Jamie's writing process.
Thank you for choosing Three Brothers Wineries. I'm Erica Policelli. I'm one of the partners here at the winery, and I want to tell you a little bit more about our estate. We were founded in 2006 by Dave and Luann Mansfield. We have 40 acres of grapevines, a fully operational farm. All of the wines you're tasting today are from our farm. We have 2 female winemakers, Kim Marconi and Paige Vinson. On our campus, we actually have 3 wineries and a microbrewery. We have an extensive portfolio of not only wine, but also beer, hard cider, wine spritzers, and wine slushy, all manufactured here on site. When we opened our doors in 2007, we had a modest staff of 10. We've grown to employ 40 full-time and 100 part-time employees. We pride ourselves on creativity, innovation, and our company culture. When you make a purchase from Three Brothers Wineries or Warhorse Brewing, you're supporting a majority women-owned small business, and we thank you for that.
Welcome back to Book Hour. I'm your host, Carly Rae, here with author Jamie Pacton. Now, Jamie, tell us more about your writing process. On Book Hour, we've had numerous authors talk about how important outlining is and how it is vital to their success in crafting their novels. Is that how you go about crafting your novels?
Definitely. Although I didn't always do that. I used to be a just kind of like fly by the seat of my pants sort of writer, and it took me a very long time. Like it took me almost like 3 years, 4 years to finish like a 30,000 word novel, and I'm so proud of myself. This is years ago, but now I'm much, much more of a planner, and some of that came about because of just like my life got busier. I have 2 kids, one who has, is profoundly autistic. And so I need to have more of a plan as I go through. But also, I just think that that's kind of how my process has evolved. So what I typically do now is I get an idea, some kind of flash, and I let it grow for a little bit. And then I'll try and think of comps or something like that I'm striving for, or a 1 to 2 sentence pitch. And then I often do something like write a query letter before, like a query type letter, before I even make an outline, because that kind of gives me a sense of where I want to start, how I want it to arc, and then where I want it to end. And I'll sometimes do a synopsis after that. But yeah, I do use outlining, and then I will do, like I'm working on a romance novel. And so romance novels have very specific beats you have to hit. And so with those, like it's super tightly planned. And then I think every book might be a little different though, because then some books I'm just a little bit more loose in my planning. But yes, definitely use outlines, definitely do lots of drafts and do lots and lots of revision.
Yeah. Well, how do you go about developing your characters? Are they based on people you know?
Some of them are. Perhaps people I know can see themselves in my books. These are my characters in Kit. It's a little postcard that I have, and if any of your readers want a postcard, they can reach out to me on social. But one of them, actually, Alex, is based on my friend Megan, who's non-binary. Lizzie, I have a friend named Lizzie, actually. I just plopped that in there. Some of these other characters are based on people I know, and so mostly I do that if it's like just kind of a little nod or a wave to one of my friends. Sometimes there's characters who are based on people I might have bumped into in my life that kind of stood out to me, and then a lot of them are just plucked out of nowhere, but then they're given a few traits. I would say that Kit is, I've said this in different interviews, like Kit's flaws are very much mine, and Kit's hopes and Kit's methods are also mine. And so I do think we put a little bit of ourselves into our characters for sure. And it's definitely true for me that I put other people I know as well.
Yeah. Now, do you get calls from your friends like, hey, is this me in your book?
I haven't yet, but some of my friends side, I haven't even finished my book yet. No. I think that there are definitely people in my life who could either recognize themselves or recognize certain situations in the book. There's actually a scene in Kit that's almost verbatim to something that happened to me in high school. And I put it in there just so my best friend Ashley would read it and be like, oh, I remember that. That's right.
Now, do you have a favorite part of being an author?
I think there's probably, I love making stories. So I think, and that's kind of, there's this line maybe between being a writer and being an author. Like I love the moment when a story first blooms, and then I love when it comes together. And I finished a book a couple weeks ago, and I'd been working on it for like 3 years, slowly over time. And it was this big, high concept story that I was kind of scared of because I wasn't sure if I was going to do it justice and bring it together. And I was, when I finally finished it and sent it, I read it one more time, and I just sat there at the end like, oh, that was exactly how I wanted it to work out. And it was a lovely feeling. So I love that feeling as a writer. And I think you can get that no matter what stage of the process you're at. As an author, I love doing events like this. I love holding my books and seeing my books, although it's a little surreal. And, so I like connecting with readers, and I love just kind of having this artifact that, like, this room that I'm in, my office, like I sat in this room for a long time, many months, and I wrote this book through a Word document and then another one, and now here's the book, and I think there's something very exciting about that part of it as well. So anyways, that connection, telling stories, these are all things I love. Things I don't love are deadlines all the time, taxes, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, as an author, you kind of touched on this, but how important is social media for you in connecting with your readers?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think a lot of people, like especially new authors, wonder about that. I have found in this debut year, especially during a pandemic, that it is tremendously important, because all of my events got canceled. I was supposed to go to conferences and, just like do book fair or school visits and bookstore events. And I haven't been able to do any of those. And so a lot of the way I think that people are finding my book where I'm finding them is through social media. That's how we met. And I think I do think as an author, you have to be thoughtful about what you put out there and what you want to put out there. So I think that, I was talking to an author friend about this the other day. Like, you are crafting a personality, and you don't have to give everybody everything. Like, my lines are, I don't talk about my kids on social media anymore because they're now old enough. And I don't talk about my marriage, or like really personal stuff, but I'm happy to tell you what I'm reading, or tell you how I feel about a certain thing, or respond to your post, or respond. Like, I still respond to DMs. I don't know, at some point that might get unmanageable. But I genuinely like talking to readers and bloggers and bookstagrammers about books in general, and then about my books when they want to talk about that. So I think it's a great aspect. I enjoy social media in that regard, mostly.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Stay tuned, because when we come back, it is game time.
Hey there, I'm Wes, and I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. Looking back, I don't think I was that different from most who experiment with drugs and alcohol. The only difference is I never stopped. What began with a few pills here and there led me to depending upon roughly 35 Vicodin a day. My addiction rocked me to the point where I ended up living in an old warehouse. I didn't want to live anymore, but at the same time, I really didn't want to die. They say it's darkest before the dawn, and that held true in my case. In a moment of clarity, courtesy of the man upstairs, I got on the road to recovery. It was time to use this gift to help others, and Clean Cause was born. Homegrown in Austin, Texas, and armed with purpose, the Clean team has created a beverage company whereby 50% of the profits go to support individuals in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. We're ready to rock and roll, but we're only a few. We need you. Buy any of our products and you'll be energizing recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. Shop now at cleancause.com.
Welcome back. It is game time. Jamie, the first game we're going to play is Would You Rather, with questions from conversationstarterworld.com. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The first question is, would you rather be an average person in present day or a king of a large country 2,500 years ago?
I think I'd rather be an average person in present day, but I will tell you that my son literally just asked me this question because he's reading a book about plagues. And so I just had a conversation. But present day, we have plumbing, we have like television, we have Netflix, we have like shopping and medicine and so many excellent things.
Yeah. All right. Well, the second one is, would you rather be an unimportant character in the last movie you saw or an unimportant character in the last book you read?
Ooh, I'd rather be an unimportant character in the last book I read, but this is hard because the last movie I saw was The Hobbit #2, and the last book I read was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab, which was amazing, and I loved it so much. I think I'm going to go with Addie LaRue for the sake of modern life, as opposed to orcs coming over the mountains and such.
Yeah. The third one is, would you rather move to a new city or town every week or never be able to leave the city or town you were born in?
That's like a perfect Addie LaRue question indeed. Have you read that book yet, CarlyRae?
I just got it yesterday at Barnes & Noble, and I'm starting it like tonight. It's been on social media, though,
I don't see
everywhere.
anything else, but that question, it's so good. But that question is super relevant. And so I've been thinking about this a lot. I would rather move to a new city every week, I think, as opposed to staying in my hometown my whole life. But that may just be quarantine because I want to.
Yeah. All right. The fourth one. Would you rather your only mode of transportation be a donkey or a giraffe?
Can I walk? I think I would ride a donkey because I'm very short, and I think giraffes would be challenging.
All right, and the last one. Would you rather have to read aloud every word you read or sing everything you say out loud?
I would rather read every word I read out loud.
Well, that concludes our Would You Rather game. Now we are going to play This or That. Are you ready? All right.
Ready.
The first question is fantasy books or mystery books?
Fantasy books.
Baseball or volleyball?
I'm not super great with either, but I'm going to say baseball.
TV series or movies?
TV series.
Sandals or boots?
Boots.
High heels or flats?
Flats, but just because I can't wear heels anymore because of my like weird hips and things.
Well, you can get those like new kind of like where they're flats, but they have like a little bit of heel on them.
I do love a good wedge for like support. So yes.
Tent or RV?
Ugh, neither. Hotel room. But I guess RV over tent.
Apartment or house?
House.
Summer or winter?
Autumn, but summer.
Cake or cupcakes?
Cake.
And the last one, ice skating or rollerblading?
Ice skating, I guess.
Well, that concludes game time. Jamie, I want to thank you for being on Book Hour and joining us today. Before you go, tell viewers if you're writing more books.
I am, actually. So my second book is called Lucky Girl, and I just got the advanced reader copy. So this will come out on May 11th, 2021. So this is another YA contemporary. It's funny. It's quirky. There is a kid Easter egg in it, but it's about a 17-year-old girl in a small Wisconsin town who wins the lottery and has to try and figure out how in the world to cash her ticket because she doesn't want to give it to her hoarder mother and she's too young. And so problem after problem after problem pile up. And so it's sort of a funny reflection on what money can and can't fix. And then I hopefully will have more book news to share before too long, but there are definitely other things in the works that I'll just leave it with that.
Now, if viewers want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter at Jamie Pacton, so the handle on the picture, and then also on Instagram. You can also go to jamiepacton.com and you can find my Pinterest boards and my email address if you want to reach out. But usually Twitter or Instagram are the best places.
Well, you heard Jamie. Go check her out now. All of her social media handles are in the description below. Jamie, thank you so much for being on Book Hour. And for those watching, I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.